Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. Okay. So we're catching up with AJ.
Yeah.
So excited. So I had this idea. I said, I would love to catch up. And I would love to catch up with all of you that are like doing stuff, like what you doing, what's a life lesson, just kind of like dive into like how things are going. Cause after high school and then after college, I want to know like what
Yeah.
happened. And um, you have been doing so much. And the first thing I want to do is I want to just like go back down memory lane and talk about our connection and
Sure.
how we like what's our connection. You know what I thought about? I was just like, I forget what age was it, 14 or 15?
Okay.
That
Spell
that
that.
you that we were able to that we connected in terms of like teacher student relationship.
That would be 15 because
15.
Sona and I did science minors our freshman year. And then we were like the in-between stage. And then at the start of our sophomore year, we began the official Achievers program. So 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's been that long. And so since that long,
10 years.
you know what I thought about? I said, AJ, tells me let's go to lunch every summer when you have an internship and you come back.
Right. Yeah.
Stuff. And then even when you guys were graduating, so I was just like, I want to just talk about all the good stuff that's happening and like life lessons and what have you learned thus far. And then like just lesson learned, like, how do you think it was just being with me and the program that we were in, like
Yeah.
just looking back, what were some things that you think you learned just about yourself and
Sure.
just, look at me rambling.
It's all good. I did the same thing.
Yeah. So what do you think? So at 15, you was with us for, you was with me too. It was a couple of us, but because it's just me, you were part of a program, a volunteer program, bunch of high schoolers talking about science, from all over Chicagoland, and then some people in Indiana. However, like you came in and you just like lit us up with your personality. You lit us up with like tenacity,
Right.
consistency, and just bravery. Because you also did theater, which was not even up you were
I
technically
did during the
you were
internship. That's right.
bubble.
During the summer internship, I did. I was the Texas bubble, and some of my friends still talk about that to this day. It's just so.
You were you were the best Texas bubble and you won.
I did.
Like
Yeah.
you were the best Texas
Made
bubble.
the biggest bubbles with my lasso. It was absolutely incredible.
Yes. So yeah, we had this stage in the middle of the museum. People came and then they voted on the best act. And you know what? It wasn't even scripted. It was just like what the audience was feeling. And they was
Right.
feeling they felt Texas bubble all the time.
They
When you
did. I was always the one that got a lot of claps. There were like those big bubbles going across the museum atrium. They always really enjoyed it.
Oh my God. So so like tell me about that as like you being a teenager, like some of the things that you kind of experienced you and you enjoyed and it kind of carried over into your, college life and, just a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think there are a couple things that really carried over from science achievers into actually to my modern career, not just college. Like one of the things I loved about being in science achievers was like the opportunity to like show science experiments and show like my passion for learning and for STEM to a wide variety of museum guests. So whether that was like kids from like Chicago itself, who were like
Yeah.
not often getting these like STEM experiences, to just I remember once we saw Buddhist monks like walking through the museum. So you have a wide variety of people coming into the museum every single day. And for me, that kind of just taught me two things. Like, I love being in front of people, and I also love utilizing my interests and my skill sets, I think, in very like unique ways that I feel like are like serving the community rather than just like serving the dollar. Right. And so when I went to college, right, I went to University of Illinois, which is a top 5 computer science program. And I don't like say that as like a way to brag, but way the reason why I bring that up is because as a result, we had so many companies recruiting at our computer science department all the time. Literally from the moment you step in as a freshman, you're inundated with career fairs. You're inundated with different companies coming in and giving talks and giving you free food. And, you're kind of immediately, as a freshman, and even as a senior, there's like cult of personality. I'm like, okay, there's Facebook. Oh my God, there's Microsoft. These are the jobs that I have to go for. And for me, I was like, okay, like I could do those things. And, those things are good to have on a resume. But I also knew that the long-term purpose of my career and a lot of the problems that I wanted to tackle in my career were problems where I felt that I would be putting my degree towards actually like solving problems in communities. And that was something that I don't think I would have been taught if I was not at the museum specifically. And so as a result, in college, I was a statistics and computer science major, but then I declared a double major in political science. I did a whole bunch of like political science internships. I spent my second semester of junior year interning in Congress for a congressman, which is how I fell in love with DC and why I'm living here now.
I know.
Yeah. And
your background is spectacular. Your view.
Thank you.
What, AJ, let me ask you,
Yeah.
What was it that got you going about community? What was it that kind of sparked it? And you were like, you know what? This is it. This is like community for me.
I think it was two things. I think it was one, just seeing like young kids light up at like the cool science experiments that we were like presenting to them. But the other thing was how diverse the Science Achievers program was. My high school in Elmhurst, Illinois, was like 3/4 white. Right? It was a very not diverse.
No, it was not.
Program.
It's not.
It's completely not. And I've always been a fan in my life of being around diverse people, diverse opinions, because that's how you form those opinions. By exposing yourself to a different variety of worldviews is how you understand things about the world itself. And the thing that I loved about Science Achievers was how diverse it was. You had people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all races, all genders, classes, you name it, were in the program. And that exposed me to a lot of people that I would not have been exposed to in high school and even college, actually. I mean, like, University of Illinois, like computer science department is, you're either white or you're Asian, right? You're a majority male. So the types of people and the types of backgrounds that those people have was a lot less diverse than I think what the museum offered. And by being around people at the museum, I think I developed a lot more of an appreciation of being around people with a wide variety of backgrounds.
What do you think? Do you think that, let's just say, for instance, do you think any of the instructors had an influence on you as well? Like going there, just going from having a traditional high school teacher versus a kind of non-informal educator that they geared their programming towards high school students.
Yeah, I definitely think there was an impact. And I think partially you kind of touched on it, right? It was less of a formal experience. And I think that allowed for more of a warmth and a bond between instructor and student rather than just like, and like a little bit more of a mentorship role versus like in high school, you are like one of 30 students. You might not always be seen in the classroom. You might, there is a lot more stress when things are for a grade versus when things are for passion and for understanding. I think, especially because your warm personality and Marvin's and Mr. Brass's warm personalities, I think there was a lot more of an attachment to you three as teachers and as individuals than nearly all of my high school teachers.
I could say that you kind of loved us all equally, although I got a few more lunches in, but that's because they were busy.
They are. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so we have to talk about this because one day I was talking to Anwar. And Anwar is one of our beloved how would we describe Anwar? He's one of our beloved family members.
Basically, yeah.
He's one of our beloved family members. And I said, Anwar, AJ let us call him AJ. But I've heard Ajay.
Yeah.
I've heard Ajay. I've heard so many pronunciations.
Yeah.
And he still lets us call him AJ. I'm like, what's up with that? Like, he needs to just tell us what the deal is.
Sure.
I mean, we all was AJ, AJ, AJ. And I'm like, that is not the correct pronunciation. And how do you go about life when people do that? Do you mind that or?
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of Indian men growing up in the States, they will usually go through some sort of phase where they'll have their Indian name and like a little bit of their whitewash name, right? Their like coffee name is something we like to call it, right? And I've kind of gone through that like basically my entire life. So when I was born, obviously my parents gave me the name Ajay, which is
Ajay,
basically what I go by. But on my mom's side of the family, which is the Italian side of my family, they've always called me AJ growing up. So I've always gone by both. I usually understand both, and I'm usually fine with both. But one of the things that I started doing after high school was trying to go a lot more by Ajay, like my original name. And so to this day now, like pretty much everyone outside of like people who knew me before college or my family on my mom's side all call me Ajay.
I know. I said that. I was like, it's Ajay. I heard Ajay. Like, that is your name. And I'm so glad that you're embracing that and you are telling people like, no, this is how you pronounce my name, because that's very important. Like, if we're supposed to be pronouncing all of these really, really fancy European names, you need to be able to pronounce my ethnic name too.
I agree. I completely agree.
Right. So, because you just roll with it and you just allowed us to just nickname you. And I'm like, that's not right. Like, that's not the right pronunciation. So you are a twin, and hopefully I'll be able to sit down with Sona too, because y'all are just beams of sunshine to me. How do you two are fraternal twins, and you're currently not in the same city, right?
No, she's in North Carolina.
Oh, she's in North Carolina.
She's with mom and dad. They're both in they're in Raleigh right now, or in Durham. So
that is so dope.
Yeah.
They're becoming North Carolinians.
They are becoming North Carolinians.
Oh my God, that's so good. So let me ask you, how do you show up for Sona, being that y'all are so far apart? I know you're close, so I wonder how does that look like now that you both are like adults, and you're an adult, you have like rent or a mortgage, and so how do you show up?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the ways that I really trying to show up right now is like job advice. Because I am like, I have been in my current job for over 2 years. I've gone through a multitude of processes of like technical interviews and a wide variety of things. And I'm no stranger to the computer science job market. And that is something that my sister is really trying to like tin right now. I'll have Sona obviously go into more detail about her educational and prospective work background when you guys talk one-on-one. But I think that's one of the ways that I do a lot of mentorship and advice is just be communicating. Okay, like this is a good job opportunity. This might not be a good job opportunity. Here's why you should have done maybe you should have done this thing instead when talking to a company, and like maybe not turn down that opportunity, or maybe you should go after this opportunity, right? So that is honestly where my main keeping that close connection with her, because everything else, like she's obviously very very complete adult, like she knows a lot of her things, she has her own group of friends, but a lot of it is just like, all right, like for me, I love taking things by the horns, right? If I see an opportunity that I want, I will go get it. And Sona is somewhat that person, but she's also like sometimes expects the opportunities to be kind of made for her. And it's also about like, okay, Sona, like go get those opportunities, make those opportunities for yourself, and open those doors. And between those two, those are how I definitely keep that close connection.
Yeah, I'd like to interview you guys separately talk to you separately because you're two different people, but you are twins, and I don't want to lump you. I'm very sensitive to the twin thing.
No, it's totally fine. I just wanted to make sure earlier. I was like, wait, I know you said you wanted to. I wasn't sure if I needed to talk to Sona or. But I'm
yeah,
fine.
you're like, wait. I'm like, no, I'm gonna get Sona.
Okay, it's like good. That's fine with me.
Yes. You know what's so crazy though? There was a moment it was during the springtime. I was at work and I got like, you have the caller ID and it said US government. And I'm like, what happened? Why did this come across my desk? I was so hesitant to pick it up. I'm like, is this for me at my extension? Like maybe it's not for me. US government should not be calling me. But I picked up the phone and it was actually a recommendation for you.
Oh.
For one of your internships for when you were in DC, when it was for a congressman, you were working for a congressman. So they did like an extensive background. What was the internship like?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So this internship, this was a little over 4 years ago. So I interned for his congressman. His name is Raja Krishnamurthy. He's, I believe he should be Illinois' 8th district. So like Western Chicagoland, a lot of the Western and Northwest suburbs. His district just so happened to be actually where my high school was in before they redrew the lines in 2020. And like, he was one of four Indians in Congress. And I was like, yep, that's the guy I basically want to work for. He's one of the only members of the Illinois delegation that I applied for. And I got it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to like take this role. Obviously, like working on the Hill is a very, very different job experience in your internships in STEM, right? And I think in some ways there's a lot more of like a not a hierarchy, that's not really the right word, but there's definitely a lot more of like, okay, you're the intern, and there's like less ownership over things versus like software engineering intern, you have at times more ownership over things. And like it does really depend on the company that you work for and the office that you're in. But it was honestly one of the coolest experiences of my life. Like it's one of those experiences that I look back on really fondly because there's not many times in your life that you have the opportunity to like work on the Hill and do service for your constituents. I mean, I was doing everything from picking up phone calls from constituents, and they would, say they're, either vent about how they hated a congressman, or they would talk about, asking about a constituent issue, or they're, for or against a certain bill, and we would usually like log all of those conversations. Once a week I would like sit in a meeting with a congressman and like see like how like it would be like with a congressman, like meeting with a lobbyist or meeting with a special interest group, like the College of DuPage, for example. Those experiences were really cool, like being a part of and walking around like where government is, like where the bills were being made every single day. And it was awesome getting to meet like a wide variety of people. I mean, I got to meet John Lewis a couple of times. That was really awesome. My biggest life regret is not asking him for a photo because I just felt like I was a little intern and probably should not have been asking, but apparently
you should have.
You should have asked. I should have asked.
You should have.
I had a wide variety of people, and it was honestly super fun. And one of my favorite parts about the job that I thought I would hate going in, but ended up absolutely loving, was giving tours to constituents. And
hello, that's you.
Yeah. Well, for me, I thought it was just like grunt work. I was like, I don't want to give tours. But then I realized that this is one of the few times in my life where I basically had like nearly unobstructed like access to the Capitol. I had a badge, so I could like walk around in like different parts of the Capitol that like, I can no longer walk in because I'm just a constituent. I'm just a citizen. And being able to like lead tours for people and seeing the magnificence of the Capitol almost every single day and talk about it. And witness history on a daily basis, I think is an extremely like unique opportunity that you don't get in most other jobs, let alone internships. And you know, like to this day, like one of my intern buddies, Pete, is still a really good friend of mine and just happens to live 10 minutes away from me now.
I love it.
One of my other buddies, who I met recently, like just became, he just got an offer to work in the Senate office the other day. So now I'm like, hey, can I come visit you on the Hill? Because I want to relive some of my glory days of walking around there and and all that. And like I said, it was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had in my life. And I honestly wouldn't trade it for anything. And I really do think like you know, if you're remotely interested in political science and in politics and civics, you know, being in college and having that opportunity to intern in DC on the Hill is one of the few opportunities, especially if you're pivoting away from working on the Hill, that you would actually have to do that opportunity, right? Like in college, we had the safety net of doing Illinois and Washington, right? Like the university was like, you know, paying for our housing, right? And we had roommates, we had all that like taken care of. And so having that safety net, like while being able to take that opportunity to work on the Hill is, especially before you start your full-time career, is something that, you know, people shouldn't take for granted and try it.
That is fantastic. Like, you know, that's the thing about you, Ajay. You have this personality that most engineers don't, right? Like it's a stereotypical thing, right? So yeah, you have this really personable personality, right? You can break things down. You're very, what do you say? People can come and talk with you. You're very personable. You're very inviting. And you don't normally see that with someone that is really like STEM, technical sound. You know, you're probably into coding down, probably, right?
Coding, what do you mean by coding?
Coding or software. Are you what, software developer?
Yeah, I am. I'm a software engineer.
Right. So you have that side of you.
Yes.
And then you have this really, really awesome, like outgoing life of the party. And you just mirror that, you know, and one year you do on the Hill and the next year you're at Google. So I thought that was really interesting. But at one point I was just, when I hung up the call, I looked over at Charles and I go, I really thought that I was in trouble. Because I saw that. I'm like, who would be calling the U.S. government? And then I said, you definitely snagged that position. Like I knew it. When we got off the call, I was just like, you would be insane not to have it. It was fantastic.
I'm glad.
Yes. Now, I always knew that you were going to be an engineer, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the jam. Are you enjoying it? Is it everything that you thought?
I always, especially later on in my collegiate career, always viewed engineering as like opening doors to follow my passion. And what I mean by that is I had this conversation with one of my managers the other day, who afterwards kind of described it as a little concerning, but she also like knows this about me. I don't view like software engineering as the end all be all. I absolutely do not. I've never been a person that has viewed the STEM career as like the end all be all. And the reason for that is just because I have passions in a lot of areas, right? Like I double majored in political science. I'm very passionate about politics and civics and using my skill sets wherever I can to make an impact. I currently do freelance travel writing, specifically in the credit cards and points and miles space at the Points Guy and at Award Wallet, and hopefully once they finish restructuring at CNN as well. And so like between those three, like I have a lot of areas of passions that I like to cover. And you know, software engineering for me, like it makes a lot of money. Like it makes money. I can have the lifestyle that I want to have, but what I hope for is like eventually like I do enough software engineering gigs in the civic space where if I want to get a master's in public policy, that door's opened, right? And then from there, right, I definitely do eyes something that is still kind of STEM centric, right, but not completely like in the weeds coding every single day. And the reason why for that is Miss Tina, you kind of touched on it, right? I have the personality of someone who's like not an engineer. And, you know, I do like coding, but there's something for me that's more passionate about like talking to people every single day. And that's something that I thrive and get a lot more energy out of than being a software engineer. That being said, I wouldn't mind being a software engineer in like 10 years from now, like as long as I'm solving the problems that I'm extremely passionate about. But software engineering is, again, like a skill set and a tool for me to open the next door and the next door and the next door. And that's what I've always viewed it as.
It's like live your best life. You know what I say? Get it together. Remember, I'm like, you better get it together. And you got it together. Like you've always had it together, by the way. But I love the fact that you are doing the points. What is it called? The points guy or
yeah.
I saw that. I'm like, right up your alley. I look at you. You're in Spain. You're in Italy. You're in Croatia. You're in India. You're in all of these different spaces. Have you been to all the continents?
No, not yet. So, yeah, I was hoping to get to 6 last year, and then like just, you know, like life got in the way. You know, I was like, I should focus on living in Austin. I was living in Austin, Texas at the time. I do want to get to 7. That is one of my goals, is to get to all 7 continents. Like Antarctica is like one of the top places on my bucket list right now.
Really?
It is. I think it would just be a super cool. Like one of the things that I really love about traveling is I love going to really remote destinations. So one of the coolest places that I went to September 2021 was my buddy and I, we were in Fairbanks, Alaska, and we flew from Fairbanks, Alaska, all the way up to the top of Alaska, the northernmost town in the United States of America, called Utqiagvik, or better known as Barrow, Alaska. And we were literally at the top of the United States. Like you go 300 miles north and you're at the Arctic, you're at the North Pole. And so my buddy and I, like, we took a dunk in the Arctic Ocean. We did all this stuff. It was a really cool experience. And we were there a little later in the summer. So we were there at the start of September. But it was kind of crazy, like looking out your window like 2 in the morning, and look at it was not even completely dark. It was kind of like a sunrise. It was such a cool experience, and a very remote experience.
Nice.
I really enjoyed that. And so Antarctica.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow. So you've been to which continents have you not been to?
I have not been to Australia, South America, Antarctica.
Okay. You was in Africa.
Twice.
Where?
Egypt and Morocco.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's your take on going into the pyramids?
I loved it. And the pyramids was really cool. It's very it's a little interesting because it's not like, you know, modern, right? You kind of have to like climb up blocks a little bit. It does take a little bit of climbing. But eventually, like, there's a little like hole that you will just kind of go and like crouch in, and you'll like climb, and eventually you'll get into like a chamber where they had like I think it was, I don't remember the king's name, but that king, like, who was buried in that pyramid, like that you were in the chamber where his like sarcophagus and his mummy were. And it was really cool. It was a really, really cool experience. I definitely have like photos from that experience from several years ago, but it was really awesome. I'm a big fan of it.
Oh my goodness. To talk about, oh, wait a minute. Hold on. This thing is, look. Okay. Sorry about that. Claustrophobia. I just had this conversation with my dad. I said, Dad, I don't really know if I could go in the pyramids because I'm claustrophobic. I would have to, he's just like, no, you get there, you're going to do the do. I'm like, you're right. I'm going to do the do. But I hear that there's such tight spaces in the.
There are some, but you end up in a more open space once you get to the end of the tunnel. So it's mainly just like, and it's pretty well lit for the most part. So you at least kind of like see where you're going.
Okay. But your body's touching wall to wall.
Kind of. maybe not actually maybe not walls to wall because there definitely was like people were able to go in and out. Like
Mhm.
maybe what did get a little narrow at some point from what I remember, but like obviously like people were going down and out and some people were going into the tunnels.
Mhm.
There definitely was space. It wasn't too bad at all. It wasn't like claustrophobic. You weren't like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This suits you well. I love it. You have such a tenacity for travel. I mean, you love it, and I love it for
Yep.
you. And I like looking at all your stuff. I remember you had on like all of these different patterns. Were y'all at the Versace mansion?
Yeah, I was. Yes, last March of last year.
See
Yeah,
how I keep up?
you do keep up. I was there at some point. When was I there? Yeah, March of last year.
You're like, wow. So what's your favorite place thus far?
That I've ever visited.
Mhm.
Ooh, that's tough. Okay, I'm gonna exclude India and
Top
Italy.
3, your top 3.
Top three. Okay, I'm gonna like I said, I'm excluding India and Italy. I'm biased. Those are really wonderful.
Yep. Yep.
Top, and I'm also gonna exclude the US. I'm gonna do solely international here.
Mhm.
Top three. Okay, I really enjoyed Turkey. I enjoyed Istanbul a
Yeah.
lot. It's one of my favorite cities that I've ever been to. I think my number I would also put Switzerland up there. Switzerland is an absolutely gorgeous country, very modern infrastructure. The train system,
Yeah.
is probably one of the most beautiful country from a landscape perspective that I've ever been to.
Wow.
And then for my number three, well, I'm going to Japan next month, so I feel like that would probably like take that number three spot. Hopefully, that's my
Yes.
at least. But Japan aside, since I haven't been there yet,
Mhm.
I would probably have to say, it's a good question. Okay, maybe I will. Maybe I will throw in the U.S. here. I put in Alaska or what? One of
I
those is three.
I can see Alaska why it would be like up there.
Similar mountains, super remote, glaciers.
Yeah.
It's like Switzerland, but a lot more Arctic.
Yeah, and I would love to do some fishing in Alaska.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do that. That sounds kind of groovy. Also, like, I'll be in Singapore in the fall. So I'm like, yeah, you know what's so crazy? I was talking to one of my good friends, and this is one thing that I kind of like. You kind of learn from all different types,
Right.
right? So my friend, she's Chinese, and she talks about having this specific dialect that she speaks, and she's
Right.
like, those are my people, and I'm like, those are your people, and she's like so grounded in like her culture, which I think is amazing. And she makes sure that her daughters are grounded in their culture, which I think is really cool. So she came over to visit recently, and we were talking about potentially taking the baby on the trip with me. And she's like, yeah,
Oh,
you can do it. And then I go, wait a minute, where's Singapore again? And then I go, no, it's on the other side.
literally the other side. In fact, the
It's
world's longest flight is from New York to Singapore. It's a 19-hour flight nonstop.
yes. And then I go, oh, it looks like it's closer to Australia than anything else.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm gonna be in for it. But I'm looking forward to going because I'm a foodie, and I hear the airport itself is just an attraction. I'm
It
gonna
is.
be hitting up museums. I'm gonna see if I can do some tours. I'm gonna be touristing it up. Like,
You should be. And from what I've heard, Singapore and Hong Kong are both wonderful, wonderful cities, especially from a food perspective. It's like because Singapore has like such a diverse culture. You have a lot of people from India there, Malaysia, Thailand, China,
mhm,
Japan. That was a result because it's such a melting pot of Asian
yeah,
cultures. The food is incredible, and obviously like expats too from other like from the UK and from Europe and from America. So it's a very big melting pot.
I'm going. I'm gonna be living my best life.
Yeah, it's awesome. Gosh.
Yeah, so I'll be there in the fall, and I'm looking forward to it. Like the more I'm really looking forward to going to Singapore. I'm just like, wow. I don't know about the flight though. I don't know. Like I'm gonna have to live up to it. You know,
Yeah.
Australia, I'm not I really I wonder about Australia sometimes. I'm like, do I really need to go to Australia? Do I really need to go? Or do I need to go because it's Australia? You know, you need to hit those things up. I love to travel too.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I think if anything, I mean, New Zealand, from what I've heard, is really wonderful.
Yeah, I heard.
You probably in that Australia, Oceania, section.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm totally looking forward to that. Okay, so let me ask you this.
sure.
What is the thing that you're like, what is a piece of advice that you've heard or you learned that you kind of live with now in your adulting age at this moment? Because of course it will continue to grow and you will live by other different things.
Right.
But based on your experience of, you know, where you come from, where you're at and where you're going, what is like a piece of advice that you carry with you?
That's a really good question. I think one of the things that I've carried sometimes unintentionally and other times extremely intentionally is just like always live your life with very diverse experiences. Whether it's some things that you're born with. Like for me, like my dad is Indian and my mom is Italian. I was born with a very diverse cultural background, right? Obviously, not everybody can control that, but like what you can control are like the people that you're around or the things that you do on a daily basis, right? Like I know some people who have friends who are very similar to them, who have had the same friend groups for like several years, who have do the same thing day in day out, and don't try new things, right? And for me, that's not really what life is about. You're only on this earth for a limited amount of time, and whether it's like going to new destinations, like traveling, exploring new passions, or even like taking the passions that you have and diving more into them. I think those are ways that I love to diversify my life, right? So like with Science Achievers, for example, like diversifying the amount of backgrounds and perspectives that I was around in terms of people on a weekly basis, right? Right now, or in college, I double majored in political science on top of computer science and statistics. Right now, for example, my main hobby is, freelance travel writing. And I call it a hobby because it is something that I do for fun in my own free time. I just happen to get paid for it. And then like another thing that I love to do is cooking new recipes. And like I recently, now that I moved to DC, I've started taking oil painting classes. And I have basically no like artistic bone in my body, but it was something that I wanted to go and venture and try and do, because that's how you grow your brain. That's how you learn about yourself. That's how you learn about the world around you. And if you don't step out of your adventure zone, you eventually stop learning. And by stepping out of your comfort zone, by trying new things, you grow significantly as a person. And that's what I would recommend.
I love that. I love that passion about you. You always take risk. Right. I would have never known for you would do theater, but you made that character shine. Right. And it was just so spectacular to watch. We practice, and then come the day of the show, we make the kids happy, and it is just so cool. But it took, hey, you want to do this part? I can try. And then right. It's just the best thing ever. And you're right. I think, don't quote me on this, I think Americans, they don't get out much anyways internationally. I think 20% of us have passports?
Right. I don't think it's that many.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I think
wow.
20 seems about right. I don't know the exact number, but there's like a decent percentage of people who've never been on a plane, right? And a lot of people opt for driving and for all that stuff, and that's completely fine. But I know people who take the same beach vacation in one of 3 destinations in the United States every single year, and I'm just like, okay, like that's good, and you can do that, but like, do you grow from those experiences? Like, do you have the opportunity to try new things and learn about the world around you? And there's a lot of ways you can take very similar levels of trips for cheap if you plan it well enough. yeah, that for me is very important. Just having that ability to travel and experience the world around me.
That is so true. Like you said, we're not here on this earth for very long. And they say that the life expectancy is 70. So 35, that's your midlife. Some people think it's in their 40s. No, I'm past my midlife. And, you need to just kind of live it how you want to live it, just kind of
Right.
take chances and see new things and meet new people and gain new perspectives.
Right.
Um, that's really, and that's what you're all about. And I love that about you. You made so many different connections with different people, different personalities.
Yes.
Um, and that's just you. Oh my goodness, Ajay, is there anything like, so we caught up on all of the good things, all of the good things. So let me ask you, Austin was first and
Yes.
now DC. Is there going
Yeah.
to be another city?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I was in Austin for a year and a half, and the reason why I chose Austin was, after the pandemic, I was kind of like, okay, given like the amount of friends I have in each city, like where do I see myself like starting like an inkling of like my own life? And this is a bit of a dilemma for me. On a more personal note, like right before the pandemic, I actually cut off a lot of my main college group just because post getting back from DC and Facebook, everyone was kind of on the outs. Basically, like one of my like roommates like sexually harassed another friend, and like a lot of them were just kind of like, yeah, you know what, we forgive him and all that. And I'm like, I'm not going to stand by any of this behavior. I'm just going to
Nope.
cut all of you guys off. And for me, it was actually something that was extremely healthy.
Mhm.
But as a result, post pandemic, I was like, okay, I only have a few friends in a few cities, and for me, it was like, where do I decide to like live my life? And I chose Austin. I knew a couple of people in Austin at the time, and I did enjoy it. It was a great city for a year and a half, but I kind of felt like being in Austin that something was like missing in my life. I realized that I loved walkable cities. I loved not having to drive a car in the Austin traffic, and I think I like also being closer to family. Austin's far, right? Like they
Mhm.
do have nonstop flights to Philadelphia, DC, Raleigh, but they're 4-hour flights. They're long flights,
Yeah.
and for me, it was like, okay, when was I happiest in the last few years? For me, it was DC. For me, I knew that my career was. I wanted something to be a little more civic. I knew that DC was the right place, and so after about a little over a year of being in Austin, I made the decision. I was like, I'm going to move back to Washington, and that's something that I chose specifically. I was like, I'm moving to DC, and I have no regrets. It was absolutely the right decision. My quality of life is so much better being in Washington versus being in
Nice.
I love everything about DC. As for the next city, that's a good question. I don't see myself moving
Oh,
unless
nice.
it's for a master's. So that would
I love
be
that.
that. So like that could be it could still be DC. It could be Boston if I wanted, if I somehow got into Harvard or one of the programs that I like is, University of Chicago's Masters in Public Policies. I would love to go to U Chicago and be
So
back
you
in
can come back. You can
come
come
back.
back to the Midwest.
Yeah. So like having like that's another possibility as well.
Mhm.
So for me, if there is a next city post DC, it will probably be something that's like more educational related.
I love that. And you know what, Ajay, like if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Right. Agreed.
You have to. And um, you know, as you grow, look at me always talking and giving words of wisdom, I think. Like, okay, who am I? Like, right? Okay, I'm Miss Danita. Okay. So as you grow, your relationships, every friendship is a relationship, and you have to invest in those relationships to make sure you water them and they
Yeah.
continue to flourish. And sometimes, if the friendship doesn't serve or it's just not where it needs to be and it's more toxic than anything, you have to let it go.
Right.
So I totally understand. And that's a good call. And, you just, you really, you really believe in um common decency and respecting others, and so I would expect that your friends would reflect that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's a hard thing to ask for. I think
Yes.
especially one of the things that like I've seen ironically post college is that for me it's been a lot easier not making friends, but like I feel like the quality of friends that I have post college is significantly better than during college. And I
Yes.
think two reasons why. I think one, I started focusing more on diversity, like who did I want to be around? And the other thing was that just I think I also matured more as a person, and I was able to I think invest a better version of myself in these friendships, and that's why they lasted.
Yeah, and you kind of want to see yourself in some things. That's what I love about you. You're like embracing your culture and you're like, look, I got some culture and I need to embrace it and I need to see people like me, doing things. That's why I love that you said I want to go and work for the congressman of Indian descent. Like I totally get that representation.
Yeah.
Totally matters.
Yes.
I'm just so excited that we were able to really cross paths, and you know I love the fact that your parents were able to allow me to be a part of you and Sona's life.
Yeah.
It was such an honor. It's always like when parents trust you, you're like, that is so like that's so honorable.
Yeah.
Um, your mom, oh my goodness, your dad, just I love them both.
They're both great. They're both great people.
They are both great, and I think they did a fantastic job.
I
And
think so too.
I think as you two gotten older, they are like, whatever you want to do, take the risk. And I love it because before it
That's
was like,
true.
that, but now they're like, no, you got to take risk. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. I think in a lot of ways they've like, especially my dad. Like once we got to college, he's like, all right, like clearly like they're doing well, like professionally, like he's like, all right, do whatever you want.
yes, you
And
brilliant.
I think the main thing was like getting into college and like, making sure that I was on the right path. And now that it's obviously the case, I think that's definitely something where they've definitely just like, all right, let them do their thing.
I love it. I love it. Well, I don't want to take up all your evening, but I'm so glad that you caught up with me and we had this conversation. I think we need to revisit ever so often. And because things happen like, hey, I had a baby. You're like, what?
I didn't know about that. Also, congratulations again.
I know. I was just like, I'm so happy that you took the time out and you dropped some gems. And um man, I'm just really excited to see what you're going to be doing in a year's time. I mean,
Same.
I'm reading every article you're going to drop. So do know that I'm still following the journey with you. I'm like, what is
I'll post it. I had one come out the other day. I'm in a different website. I haven't posted online yet, but I will do that.
Oh, you drop it and I'm reading it whenever I get a chance.
And then I have another one that I'm really proud about. This is actually an original picture of mine, but it's about the 3 credit cards. If I could only choose like 3 cards to have in my wallet, which 3 would they be? And that is.
Well, you can't tell me now. I have to read
I
it.
can't tell you now. I got to read the article.
Okay. Yeah.
Travel
points. I know that's on there. So I gotta kind of get, because I'm all about the travel points for sure.
Yes.
I'm all about it. Wow. So last thing, are you eating Ethiopian food? Because the Ethiopian food scene is
It is. I've been to.
and
I've
it's
been to
vegan. A lot of
I love Ethiopian food, and that's again one of the reasons I took to move here. There's a million reasons why I moved to DC, but like the access to really good Ethiopian food is incredible in Washington, and so I've been to a wide variety of really really good places. So continuing to stumble around and find out the scene. But yeah.
Yeah, you have like Ethiopian, good Thai. You love Thai
I
and
do love Thai.
Indian. So
Yeah.
good. You love your pasta. You have a nice palate.
Yeah. Thank you. I do love my pasta. It's something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the next time we catch up, there's gonna be some other stuff I know because you are forever evolving.
Yeah,
And that's what I think needs to happen. We need to always constantly, once we stop being students and learning, we don't we
we
don't
don't.
do too well. Like we just stagnant and ugh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cannot be me. I don't want to stagnate
Right?
anytime soon.
Right. Just a lifelong learner of
Right.
life,
Right.
So I think that's fantastic. Catching up with Ajay. That's the tagline for this.